And testing 212, is this thing on? Welcome back to another episode of A Gamer's Guide to Productivity, where you have Nico Pingan, your host, joining Chris Abdey once again. If you haven't checked out the first part of the interview with Chris, definitely check that out. Definitely check that out two times because he is back and he is ready to dive deeper into the challenges and triumphs of staying focused, productive, and purposeful. In our last conversation, Chris provided so many insightful tips on how to conquer procrastination, one of them being the finger rub. If you don't know it, definitely go check out the prior episode where we interviewed Chris. This time we're going to explore some new dimensions, new focus. We're going to dive deeper into personal growth, practical strategies for long term momentum, and how we can align our productivity with what we actually want. So, Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me again, Nico. Glad to be here.
And, and for those that may be wondering what a productivity focused podcast mixed with a procrastination coach looks like, we are the core example of what that looks like. As for a procrastination coach, just for those that may be tuning in for the first time and are listening and say, what is a procrastination coach?
Right. So a procrastination coach is just really somebody who, helps you to get the things done that you want to get done and that you need to get done so that you can go back and go back and get playing your games, right?
Boom, right in the super summary. And I wanted to dive deeper into those areas, starting with essentially individuals that they have a desired outcome. They say, hey, you know what? I want to be an astronaut. I want to go to the moon. And then they're stuck on, playing video games all day. They're just scrolling mindlessly through Instagram, social media, doing everything except steps towards their goals. And there's a lot of reasons as to why, but I wanted to know, in your professional opinion, what are some things that they can do to shake up their mindset? Because if they want to not do that, they're completely fine with not wanting to achieve anything. But if they truly want to achieve something, what are some things that they can focus on in order to get that underway?
No, no, for sure, for sure. So one of the things that you're going to want to focus on, and this is the most important thing, actually. To be honest with you, you can probably throw out the rest of the show. No, I'm kidding. Don't do that. But this is probably the most important thing that you have to know before you set out to do any goal. And the biggest thing is why. Why do you want to do it? You want to be an astronaut. Why?
Mm.
Is it because it sounds cool? Is it because it's something that you could see doing it? Like what is driving you to want to be an astronaut? The reason I ask about this is because there's so many of us that are sitting there. Um, well, not me specifically, but I know what the pressures are like for somebody who's sitting at home. They're playing, they're playing some games. Maybe their dad's a doctor, their mom's a prominent psychologist, or somebody else who's doing really well.
Hmm.
And so we tend to take on the goals of someone else or the goals
Mm.
that society says we should take, right? And so procrastinating in those goals is actually kind of a good thing because it's your way of saying that you're just not aligned with that goal. So the first thing that you need to do to really stay focused is why. When your why is high, your cost is low.
Mm.
So, again, why? So, you're sitting around and playing video games all day, but then you decide you want to be an astronaut. So, why? Once you know that, then you can actually start working towards it. And you have to understand, and you have to really understand what it is that you're getting out of not doing it. Because on some level, it's serving. I mean, you're not broken, you're not lazy, you're simply reacting to the programming that you've had in your life up until this point. And so you're operating exactly as how you are supposed to be operating in a way that's keeping you, quote unquote, safe, right? That's actually the biggest thing for sure. So that's what I would check first, Nico.
So when somebody discovers their why, the reason as to why they're striving to even think about wanting to do something, That's the very first step. They checked off their why. They know, you know what, I want to be the insert reason as to why, and that's why I want to do it. And then for the next couple of weeks, they continue just sitting on their butt. What would the next best thing to do once they have their reason as to why they are even considering putting in 1 ounce of effort into that endeavor?
Right. So the next thing that they need to do is they need to do like a brain dump. And I love brain dumps because they're quick, they're easy. You don't have to do anything for them really. Just everything you got out there, you just put into a brain dump. And what this does is it helps to prevent you from developing any sort of anxiety, right? Because the
Mm,
reason we get into anxieties and tailspins is because we start adding things on and adding things on. So when you're sitting there thinking, I want to be an astronaut. Oh no, I'm gonna have to, get good grades in school. Oh, I'm gonna have to, go to Harvard. What if I don't get into Harvard? What if and then all of a sudden you're spiraling, right?
right.
It's all these things that could happen. With a brain dump, you're not even thinking about anything. You're just thinking about the things that come into your head. So, okay, I want to be an astronaut. What do I need? Okay, go to Harvard. But you don't even think about it. You just write it down. Okay, what else do I need? Yeah, I need to be good at math. I need to do this. I need to do that. But you're not actually thinking about any of those things you're putting down on the paper yet. Once they're on the paper, then you can start sort of organizing them and looking at seeing if you can put them in order. So you might say, okay, get good at math. You might say, then again, get into Harvard. Then you might say, okay, join the space program. Now, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to identify very early on, like super early on, before you even do anything else with that list, you're going to want to identify places that you are not clear on. So
Mm,
if you're not clear on how to get into the space program, research that. It's an easy first step. Because one of the biggest things that stops people at the end when they're just about to go ahead and move forward with something is that uncertainty or the fear of the unknown, or they get overwhelmed because they're not really sure what's involved. So what happens is they think, "Oh, this is going to be so hard. It's going to be so difficult." They're putting their own barriers up, and I mean, this happens with small things too. Like when you're playing a game and somebody says, "Oh, you got to take out the trash." Like, oh man, okay, I got to get off the couch. I can do that. But then you're like, "Wait, oh no, 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 no! It's dark out. There might be a raccoon, skunk. I don't. It looks like I might right now. I'm better off staying here, y'all."
right. Now that is interesting because once you end up focusing on the why and then you end up focusing on doing a little bit of research, it becomes a little bit easier to then do the next step, that momentum, that initial inertia. As if we studied physics properly, object in motion stays in motion. So with a little bit of momentum, it becomes a little bit easier to do more. And for individuals that are, at that second or third step where they've done the research, they know their why, but they're struggling with the accountability aspect. Like maybe 2 out of the 7 days of the week, they're putting in the work, they're researching, they're doing what they're supposed to. But every so often, 5 days of the week, they wake up, they know their why, they know the research, but the energy level to want to do that is just non-existent. Whereas for everything else that is not as important, like the instant gratifications, gaming, social media, it's so right there, and they're unable to get to that area where they're comfortable letting go or sacrificing that instant dopamine hit. What are some things that they would take in order to either delay that gratification or focus on just sacrificing them away from that instant gratification to do what they think they want to do or say they want to do, but the actions speak otherwise?
No, and I like that too because it goes back to when you're talking about being accountable. We always talk about having accountability partners. Now I'm going to make this a two-parter, so you might want to grab a Coke or something. So the first part of this is going to be to have an accountability partner. So it's easier for us to be held accountable externally than it is internally, and it's such a shame too because a
Mm,
lot of the times when we don't have the accountability to just ourselves, and this is going to be a hard truth for a lot of us to hear. It's normally because we just don't feel like we're enough, or we don't feel like we're good
mm,
enough. We're not worthy of our own time, and
mm,
it's kind of it's kind of sad. And the only silver lining to this is that so many of us are so oblivious to this that we don't even register it. It's just in our subconscious mind. I mean, it's not affecting our day-to-day life,
Hmm.
thankfully for most of us.
Right.
But if you're having a hard time being accountable for yourself, then I'd be taking a hard look at, do you value yourself? Do you value your own time? Do you value your own ideas? Because if you're still not doing it and you're looking for that instant gratification, what is that instant gratification giving you? That video game, that instant dopamine hit, that next badge, that next medal, that next unlock. It's saying you're good enough. You got here. It's so instant gratification is more like instant validation. And
Mm.
and that's just what we're ingrained from basically from birth to want, right?
Right.
We start out drawing pictures for mom and dad. Oh, this one didn't make the fridge. Oh damn, I gotta do another one. I gotta do another one until it gets up on the fridge. I gotta do
Right.
it. And then it gets worse with social media. If I post something and nobody likes it in 30 seconds, it's it's the end of the world. Oh, everybody hates me. Why? Nobody's watching me. Nobody's looking at me. Hey, look at I ate a sandwich for lunch. Why is nobody liking that? It's just so yeah. So accountability is a big thing, but without unpacking a bunch of stuff, the first thing to do is just to get an accountability partner, and then try to bridge that habit to being accountable for yourself. Because while you're being accountable to other people, and this could be a friend, mentor, gaming buddy, maybe Killjoy 76 on the Counterfront Strike. You know, uh, it can be anybody. Because once you've actually externalized it, see, once everything's internal, nobody's watching, we don't care.
Hmm.
Which again goes back to the whole self-worth thing, which is a whole other thing. But once you've materialized it in the world and somebody else knows, then that need we're leveraging. Again, we're not broken, but we're
Hmm.
leveraging a negative trait into something positive.
Mm.
Because we're leveraging that need for validation
Hmm.
into a sense of accountability and a sense of accomplishment, achievement, which again takes a lot of time just to unpack. Because again, we're doing millions of these types of calculations in our head, and we
Right.
don't even know why we're doing it because it's all subconscious. So what happens after that is as you move forward and you start doing things, the next step is to start doing it and understand that you're doing it for yourself. You're not doing it for
Mm.
them. You're doing it for yourself. So it's really important to get into self-regulation. So understand that, okay, I told my buddy I'm doing this. I did it. I feel great. Okay. Why am I feeling great? Am I feeling great because I did it? Am I feeling great because I did that thing and I checked it off? Or am I feeling good because my buddy knows that I finished it?
Now, does it truly matter as to the reason initially when you're trying to detach from that external validation and like transition into an internal validation, enabling you to become more focused on reaching your goals by doing the little itsy bitsy step, even if all you're doing is just, telling your procrastination coach, like, hey, I didn't eat that pizza. Like they offered it to me at the office, and I'm trying to lose 2 pounds so I can do, take this photo, in a couple of weeks, or do this activity, this 5K, and I didn't eat the pizza. I just want to let you know. And even though they had the pizza right in their hand, they're like, let me just send this text message real quick. Because it's such a small little act, does it truly matter, as opposed to like having to manifest and truly be like, hey, you know what? I ran a kilometer today. I ate kale. I ate, spinach. I did all this amazing things, and be like, I'm feeling burnt out. Does it truly matter? Like when you're at first getting started, like the amount of effort that you're putting in, or just any little bit helps.
No, and any little bit helps. And I'll give you the classic examples I fall back to. This goes back to evolution. Again, our brains are very good at protecting us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's why we're so hardwired towards negative. I mean, you can remember every negative moment in your life, but if you start to go back and you try to remember those positive moments from when you were 4 years old, you're gonna have less of those. If you go back
Mm.
and try to remember all the bad ones, you're probably gonna remember a lot more of them. And the reason is that the brain is wired in such a way as to keep us safe. Now, the unfortunate thing about the brain is that it's also dumb. It's both the smart one of the smartest evolutions there is, but it's
Hmm.
also the dumbest. And I'm gonna get some flack for saying that. But the thing is that our brain is so good at protecting us from dangers. It protects us from dangers that are exaggerated or not real. Um, just so the brain doesn't know the difference between running away from a cheetah and sitting down and taking a math exam. The anxious response or the fight or flight response, well, actually, it's fight, flight, fear. I'm sorry, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn.
Mm.
Those are good ones. But it is the same mechanism, exactly the same mechanism, exactly the same chemical reactions, exactly the same sort of cellular reactions as that cheetah was chasing you and going to eat you, as it is to sit down and take a math exam for some people. So, it's very interesting how that works, but you are absolutely right. It does not matter how small the step is, as long as it's significant to you. It
Mm.
has to have significance to you. Now,
Mm.
I use Mount Everest as an example because thousands of people have climbed Mount Everest. So, I mean, everybody who says I want to climb Mount Everest is kind of like, you know, okay, so but when the first person did that, it was a big thing. Now
Right.
somebody comes along to me and they say, "I want to lose 2 pounds before that office picture or whatever," and they're sending me a text message. That text, just sending me a text message saying they're gonna eat that pizza, that literally could have been their Everest. We don't know.
Oh, it's the perspective, especially of that individual, whether they're on day one, day 180. If it's that monumental to them, it could be a big catalyst, so to speak.
Oh, for sure. It is definitely 100% about perspective. And again, this goes into actually accomplishing those goals too, right? So most of what you're going to get out of accomplishing a goal is on the journey towards the goal. It's not actually getting to the goal. It's why we're never happy when you know, and you can call me out on this if you want, but we're never happy when we say, "I want to make $1 million," and then we make $1 million because we've made it, and then we're saying, "Okay, what's next? Oh, okay,
Hmm.
what's next?
Hmm.
What's next? What's next?" And it's because we didn't really take the time to enjoy how we did that. It's just that, oh, we got it, and now it's gone. So now we're looking for the next fix. So yeah, no, just whatever is small. The smaller the step, the better, especially when you're starting out. But there's no step that is too small. Literally, no step that is too small. And I've had people joke with me about this. I've had people. I swear, I think they were messing me with me about this, but I took it through them like they were being serious because you never know, and it's true. Literally, a small step and this one might resonate with some of the gamers there. One small step, and I actually took this step myself. Okay, I used to be I used to be a pretty heavy workaholic, and then I'd only want a game. I wouldn't want to really talk to anybody, right? So one of my small steps to kind of unplugging from that and integrating where I wanted to integrate, which was more with
Hmm.
my family. I actually started hitting the pause button when people were talking to me because I wouldn't do that before. I'd be letting them talk to me and I'd still be playing the game, right? So
Hmm.
one of the things I did is okay. So just flick. It's not that big a deal. It's literally right there in the middle of the controller, right? Just boop, pause. And just by doing that for 2 seconds, the first time was kind of excruciating. I got to level with you. It's kind of excruciating. But as you develop those habits and you get the positive feedback, that's another really important thing, and why accountability. Just swing back to accountability partners.
Hmm.
We are our own worst accountability partner because
Hmm.
we are our own worst critics. So what we need, everybody does need in the beginning. Everybody needs somebody to believe in them.
Mm. That's
This
deep.
isn't. They have to believe in them more than you believe in yourself. And the reason for this is because again, we're conditioned to kind of take our place, right?
Right.
We've got alphas, betas, omegas, whatever cliques in high school. I don't want to brag, but we've got all these people, right? And the issue is that we really just need to just believe in ourselves more.
Hmm.
But the interesting thing is that we really aren't able to do that. Well, okay, the majority of us aren't able to do that unless we've been given the example. It's
Right.
like when you're teaching a kid. or you're teaching someone to pick up after themselves. I mean, if they've never seen you do it, or at least seen another person do it, they're going to put the sock on top of the bed and call it a day, right? I
Right.
mean, because they don't know how to do it. And people don't realize this, but it's just exactly the same thing with self love, validation, and belief, right?
Mm,
So we can find a million reasons not to believe in ourselves. But I'll tell you what, and it sounds dumb, but this is ego, right? So when somebody says, "Hey, even if it's not something that was that great, like, oh wow, you okay, there's just different things here, but like when you're talking to kids and you're saying, "Oh wow, that's such a great drawing." The horse that looks like the horse that looks like a mutilated cat, dog, can garbage monster. Oh, that's an awesome horse. Yeah, we'll put that up there. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. We'll burn it when he gets to the next one. But just that, just having that allows you permission, which is a whole strange concept in itself, that you would need
mm,
permission to believe in yourself. But that's how that's how rigid we can be. So once you have somebody else who believes in you, it is easier for you to believe in you. And I just want to go on the side for this and say that this happens quite a bit, and there's people that feel guilty sometimes because they get their validation and they get their fix from other people
mhm,
more so than they do from their own families, right, or their own friends
mm. Right.
because it's easier to share something with a stranger than it is to share something with someone because we've still got that little witch wound. I like to call it the witch wound, right? Fear of rejection or messing up the relationship or changing it in some way, right? So just having those accountability partners, and again, they can be anybody, friends, family, or not. Sometimes it's even easier if it's not. And then once you've got that sort of confidence built up, then you can start peeling away the other layers and actually getting comfortable with telling your family or your friends about
That's actually pretty interesting. The fact that it it's the inertia. Like somebody has to believe in you first, even if it's just a small little smidgen. Because with that small little smidgen, you're able to say, "Hey, they believe in me. This is how they believe in me." And even if they believe in you and they want you to do this, you're like, okay, they believe in me, but I really want to go do this. So even though it's not what they are pushing you towards or what their belief is into you, it's that push initially to get you rolling, get you to have a why. Why am I waking up so early? They want me to go join the military, but now, I want to be a trainer. Now I understand. I want to wake up and work out and do this and do that because this is the passion. And now I'm going to research. I'm going to do A, B, C, and D. And that makes me think about the fact that when somebody is in the stage, let's say a couple of weeks in, maybe they're 3, 4 weeks in, and now they're stagnant. They've been doing it, faithfully 3, 4 times a week, researching, focusing, speaking with their accountability partner. But then at some point, it's like they plateau where they're neither gaining an extraordinary amount towards their goals, but at the same time, they're not completely quitting. They're just in this like gray area. Now, for those individuals that they're trying to be productive and they find themselves not necessarily procrastinating, but not also getting anything accomplished. They're just there. Like they're just going to the gym, not going to push and challenge their muscles, but going just enough to just maintain and not lose it. What would you say to them if they're still thinking, I want to accomplish this goal, but now I'm not, I don't have the nitro turned all the way on. Like the first couple of days, oh, I was in my honeymoon phase. Now I'm just like,
it. And that's where the small consistent steps come in. And this is why I say, and again, that I've used this for my own workouts too, just to let you know. Because summer came, it got warm in Canada, and it's like, oh yeah, well, I want to be outside. I want to spend time. I don't want to be stuck in a garage. In the winter, it's easy to go into into the garage or outside and just be
mhm.
like, yeah, I can do this because there's nothing else to do. So once summer rolls around and it kind of got out of the habit, right? So it's been a couple of months, and so to get back into it again, just small actions. You're going to go in and you're going to say, okay, I was doing 15 push-ups. I was doing, I'm going to go in and do 25. Why? Why? So why are you going to do that? The
Mm.
thing is that it's somebody else mentioned this to me, and he was also a gamer actually. Mr. Artie Shaw, he said it on his show. Actually, yeah, I had an interview with him, and what he said was um, that it's not a net. It's like a not a net zero game, right? So he says,
Mm.
don't go in there and do 100 push-ups and then go to 150. He says, just do two, just do two push-ups. If you can't find your motivation and you're at your baseline level,
Mhm.
just do one more. That's it, one more. And then the next day, one more again. The day after that, one more again. The day after that, one more again. Well, not necessarily one more each day, but you can augment that.
Right.
You can do an extra 5 reps this week. Next week, do another 5 reps. Small, consistent actions will lead you through all the time. And it's true. When we get that big burst of motivation,
Mhm.
I've been there. A project I've really wanted to work on. I've worked on it all through the night, burned the midnight oil for like 2 3 weeks, sleeping like 2 hours a night. Feeling pretty happy with myself at the end. But then I'm feeling after that, it's like I burned myself out. But
Mhm.
rather than just do a like even having the activity. So like when you feel sick, a lot of people say that you rest, but the people who really want to get forward with their goals, they just cut back what they're doing by half because they're
Mm.
still they're still doing something.
Right.
They're still doing something, and I'm not sure I totally agree with the mentality when you're talking about bodybuilding, because half of their routines are still really intense. But if you're saying that I want to do this and I have to study this much, I have to study for 6 hours. All right, study for 1 hour,
Mm.
because it's still one step in the right direction.
And so that's essentially how you would balance out the desire for your grandiose ambition, but also being overly cautious on preventing burnout. Because if your early desire, first couple of weeks is to lose weight, you're gonna go crazy at the gym. But then week 2 or 3, you're too tired. Your body's like, oh man, I don't know about the gym. Versus taking those small steps, a push up today, add a little bit here tomorrow, do the bare minimum. That's always my mindset. Is like if I could do the bare minimum every day, why not? Because then I'm not expanding a crazy amount of energy. I'm just doing what I tell my mind. Like, I really want to do this, but then I need to put at least a little, even if it's just 1% better. And I think I read somewhere like if you get 1% better every day, that's 37 times better in the year.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
three
just
times
small
better.
little, just
Yeah.
small little steps.
Yep. Small little steps. And actually, true story. I didn't even tell you the first part of my routine.
Mm,
So literally, the first part of my routine was literally from coming off of the summer hangover. Was literally I got up at 5:30 in the morning every day and didn't. I went out and I played a video game for an hour. I did
nice.
that for 2 weeks. And then on the second week, I got up at 5:30. I didn't go play the video. I went out to the garage where I knew I'd be going to do my exercise. I just went out there and I stood there. Stood there for like 5 minutes. Felt kind of dumb the first time, but it's getting you used to getting up and then fine. Then you're getting used to going out to where you're supposed to go. And then okay. Then you train yourself. Okay, when I go out there, I have to pick up a weight. Okay.
Mm,
And then when I go out there, now I know I'm doing, two different ways. I'm
right.
doing 2 sets instead of three. And then by the time next summer rolls around, I'll be ready to give it up again.
No, that's actually pretty intriguing because um it's essentially enabling you to not it's like the opposite of going hard all at once, but like now it's like, hey, let's take it easy, let's take it nice and chill, let's get used to it. Because I know if somebody says, hey, wake up at 5:30 and work out for 2 hours on a day off, it's like, whoa, on the day off wake up early to do that, versus like, hey, just wake up a little bit earlier, and then if you desire to do the workout, like just stand there, like it's very simple in the concept, but just like the finger rub, it's like so effective because I'm picturing right now because I've done that before. I just didn't know why that worked. Like, why does it work? The fact, like, if I want to get used to going to the gym every day, I'm just gonna wake up early, put my clothes on, go to the door, and then if I don't feel like it, not go and just go back to sleep. But no, like, hey, next time I could actually just go turn the car on and then turn it off And then to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm going to the gym. I'm actually doing it early in the morning when before I would have just hit the snooze button. And so to understand, like, yeah, you have to tell yourself, hey, you have enough self respect, self worth, self validation to at least do this little bit. Like, if you could do it for video games and something not as productive, and you have a bigger goal than just playing a game or two in the morning, well, then why not for a bigger goal? Just start a little bit small. As the saying goes, like Rome wasn't built in a day.
Nope, Rome was not built in a day, but I always like to add in, it sure as heck burnt in a day.
And that is funny because that's the same thing too with like dieting, for example. You can make a ton of progress and then just crash out at the wrong time. If you're eating like crazy, the cravings were too hard. Or for I've seen other individuals, like they diet so much, they restrict themselves so much that once they let loose, it's like all the gains, all the progress just goes out the window for a moment. Like the burnout is just crazy. And I don't know if you have any tips on preventing having that kind of a catalytic burnout.
Mm. Oh yeah, and it's actually going to sound a little counterintuitive, and that is actually plan breaks. I mean, honestly, and this is across the board, and everybody I've worked with, the first step, because a lot of us say we don't have enough time. We
Hmm.
need to make time right away. That's the wrong thing to be telling yourself. You can't make time. There's a finite amount of time. That's it. I mean, you can't make any more of it. What you can do is you can use it a little more, effectively. And so the first thing that I like to do is I like to show people that you can get back easily an hour, 2 hours a week. And then once you've done that, I say, okay, you've done that. How's that feel? Great. All right, let's get you back 1 to 2 hours a day. And it's insane, but you can get back. The average person can get back 2 hours a day by simply, optimizing and knowing themselves, and just being able to shift their mindset, have the energy, and then just have that accountability to themselves too.
Mm, that's pretty interesting. Hmm. And that, it kind of makes me want to also think about when you mention like the self validation and the self worth. How would you say like somebody's self compassion can enable them to overcome procrastination? And how would they start to take steps to be a little bit more empathetic with themselves?
Right. that is a tough one, especially if you're in an environment where I'm sure that our parents mean well, but sometimes they do say things and do things like, I'm sure that you've heard it once or twice. Hey, stop being so lazy. It's not necessarily being lazy. So, the first real step to having self compassion is to just understand that, again, you're not broken.
Hmm.
You know, you're actually operating exactly the way that you're designed to operate, given the circumstances that you were around.
Right.
So, you did the best that you could with the information that you had at the time. And that's all any of us can do, is the best that we can do with the information we have at the time. And and also just not label it, right? So, if you're sitting there and you're saying, "Oh, I didn't get this done. Now I feel like a loser because I didn't get this done," right? And see, what happens when you do that is you get into this negative feedback loop. So now you're feeling bad that you're procrastinating, which causes you to procrastinate more, which causes you to look for instant gratification, whether that be Instagram scrolling, or actually, honestly, it's more likely to be video games, because again, I've done this behavior myself, so I get it. When everything else seems to be crap and you don't seem to be able to do anything, those little badges and those little check boxes that you get from completing things, I mean, it does in a pinch, and you you get used to that.
And that is actually very true because when we lack that self compassion for client one, the main character of our lives, when we lack that compassion, it does enable others to their words and actions to affect us a little bit more because now we're a little bit more reliant on that external validation. and we're so reliant upon that because we can't provide it to ourselves. So when we hear like, oh, you're lazy, it's like, yeah, you know what, I am lazy. And and when you are a little bit more empathetic with yourself and you're a little bit more understanding, and you're like, hey, today is my break. I've been going hard, 5 out of the 7 days. This is my one day of rest. I got my next day in like 5 other days. So right now is my only chance to play like an hour of games. And I think that's actually a really really key, because it's like the cheat day when you're trying to be fit. um, and it's enabling you to focus on improving how you see yourself, because then how you see yourself, then you can excuse that energy. And it for me, I think it should enable us to be able to then start to focus on what we want to actually do. Once we have a cheat day, it's like going on vacation. You go on your mental vacation. Like mind, you have a time to relax. Body, you have a time to relax. Now get all the external, I need to go crazy, I need to play, I need to do this, get that out of the day, out of the way, so that way on the next day it's time to go to work. And with your mindset, I did want to touch base on, how do you switch back to the it's time to focus? Because sometimes our mind says, yeah, let's take a little bit of a rest, and then that 1 hour turns to two, that two turns to a day, and then it turns to 2 days. And sometimes we go from making amazing progress, we took a little break, and then now it's like we went right back to that cycle, that never ending loop, like my background.
Right. So actually, that's a very good question. And what you do to avoid that is you have to set yourself up for success. Okay.
Mm,
So and man, some of this is going to probably be pretty painful for you guys, but when you're working on your goals, you really and I kind of didn't really buy into this that much because I'm a gamer. I have my little figurines on the side and stuff, but um, when I first started out trying to do some of this, I was working from home, and I had a little desk. It wasn't in my room because okay, I knew that if I'm in my room, I feel sleepy and my bed's right there. I'm not going to be too motivated. But one of the key things is to have a space that is for work, that you
mm,
don't do anything else in at all. Like you don't eat in it, you don't sleep in it, you don't watch TV in it, you don't read in it, you don't do anything other than work on your tasks in that specific space. And it could be a little desk in a corner of a room. If you don't have space, it could be in your bedroom. But just don't fall into the temptation of grabbing that laptop or grabbing that scratch pad and getting into bed, because the bed, like what was the saying, um, time has a memory but places have an energy.
mm,
So if you are always feeling very energetic in say that, like, it's why you can't really work out in your bedroom, right? So you want to
right.
set yourself up for success. No distraction, like as little distraction as possible, and to get you back into it. And it is tough. Those first few days back from a vacation or the first week back. And so you kind of have to make it like I'll be a little more polite here. Be like a, a turd sandwich, right? So you gotta have something good in there. So
Hmm.
when you're first coming back, again, you don't have to go full blow. Like you don't have to go full throttle when you first get back, right? Which is everybody feels like they have to do that, especially if they're in a corporate environment or if they're in a if they're coming back to school. They feel like, oh, I got to work really really hard as soon as I get back. Okay, who said that though? What's
Hmm.
wrong with you just getting up at 5 a.m. and sitting in the place where you're supposed to work and not doing anything? There's nothing wrong with that.
Hmm.
You're just getting up and you're sitting there and you're just getting used to the energy of the place again.
So it's essentially attacking that perfectionist mindset that is going to say, well, if I'm not going to wake up at 5:30 and work out, I might as well not do anything at all.
Mm. Yeah, well, that's still progress though.
Hmm.
And I have this discussion with quite a few people actually on almost on a daily basis. You know, at the end of the day too, we have goals, we have dreams, we have these things we want to do, or we have these things that we need to do. but we are human beings. We are not
Hmm.
human doings. So just by being, we are enough. That's not to say that that's an excuse for you to go and veg out and not do anything, but it is saying that just by being there, you are enough. And if you can sit there, like, sure, I mean, this can go either way. It's kind of a slippery slope. But if you're sitting there and you get up 5:30 and you're just sitting there, you're like, oh man, I just can't do it. Sit in it. Just sit in it. It'll pass. It takes, anywhere from about 90 seconds to about a minute 20, but it will pass. And this gets into emotional regulation. So I really loved how Eckhart Tolle put it. Emotions are energy in motion. So
Mm.
the more that we focus on that feeling, the heavier it's going to get, and the harder it's going to become out of that. But if you just sit with that feeling of not wanting to do anything, and
Hmm.
you just sit there and you just sit with it, and you focus on that feeling, like you shine that little internal light on it,
Right.
it goes away. And it's like, why? Like, you won't even realize, like, and then you'll probably be sitting there asking yourself, like, why did I feel that way again?
Hmm. So that's actually pretty intriguing because in that case, when you have that perfectionist mindset creeping in, trying to like tell you, hey, don't do that. You're not gonna, it's not even gonna be as good if you do it in this manner. Just wait until it's the perfect timing. It becomes a little bit easier to navigate. Like, why am I setting myself either to fail, or why am I setting expectations ridiculously high when I just need to go out there and, eat for effort? And that's actually very intriguing because shining that light, it reminds me of one of my favorite fishes, the I think it's like the ankler fish that has that hook on there, the lightning hook on there. And it's like, yeah, if we can just focus on what that energy is, like the shame, like, oh, if you're gonna wake up early and not work out, like, what everyone's gonna, they're gonna look at you funny. It's like, no one's looking at you, no one's judging you. It's just your self-worth, again, back to that internal validation not being there, that is essentially judging yourself. But for those that also have the other side of the spectrum where they're willing to do a lot, but they're feeling overwhelmed because now they're out on like step 5 or 6. They got their daily schedule going. They're already focused. They got their accountability partner, but then they're adding a little bit too much to their plate. They're adding, wake up early, work out, make an amazing meal. They're, go to this store, go to that event, go do this. Maybe they still do a 9 to 5, and then, volunteer over here, and then do that, and then do this, and then I gotta go back home and do all these things, and then like, I'm doing a little bit too much. I'm stretching myself a little too thin. And then that voice creeps in like, okay, what are you going to cut out? And then I'm going to feel guilty for saying no to
Mm,
one of these things on my list. So for those individuals, those gamers that they might be looking at, hey, do I want to cut out gaming? Do I want to cut out going to the gym? Do I want to cut out, visiting family and friends, or volunteering here and there? But they have all these goals and desires that just have this endlessly long list of things to do.
mhm. Well, I like to think that when you're feeling overwhelmed, it's because of one or two things, and it really is this simple. You're overwhelmed because it's either it's not yours, okay, so it's not yours, or you just don't have all the information that you need.
Mm.
Because there is literally no other reason to feel overwhelmed. Those are literally the only two reasons when you get down to the base of them.
Mm-hmm.
That it's I like the first one to discuss boundaries. They say they feel guilty about saying no, and again, this goes back to the self validation thing. You know, why are we people pleasing? This goes back to the adrenal response where I was talking before. The fight, flight, freeze, or fawn.
Mm-hmm.
Fawning, people pleasing, is a form of adrenal fatigue, and it's exhausting. I mean, it's
Mm.
again speaking from personal experience because I used to do it a lot. It is exhausting. And so you just got to adopt the mentality that, and this is probably not going to make me very, very popular with some some people out there. Because again, there's lots of ugly words we like to throw around, like, "Oh, you're a narcissist. You're selfish. You're a jerk." You know, but no, it's not about that. Literally, just saying no. And I like the saying, "Not my circus, not my monkey." So if I'm feeling overwhelmed
Ooh.
about something, and again, I'm going through a situation right now. Just to give you something's going on. I really want to help my brother out. Right, he's going through something, and I'm feeling really really stressed out about it sometimes. And the thing is and I'm feeling overwhelmed about it. And the thing is, why? Why am I feeling overwhelmed about it? Well, because in the first place, it's not mine. Like, I
Hmm.
literally have zero responsibility, like, in any shape or form to be, doing this stuff. Literally, there's literally zero reason. He's an adult, I'm an adult, we're living our own lives, Um, but it's overwhelming to me also because one, it's not mine. And
Hmm.
two, it's because I don't have all the information that I feel I would need to navigate the situation properly.
Right.
So when we're feeling overwhelmed, it's one of those two things. It's boundaries, so not my circus, not my monkey, or it's we don't have all the information that we need to navigate it successfully. So you just really need to figure out which one it is. If it's boundaries, the only thing I can tell you about boundaries is just practice. Just I mean, I got to level with you. I went to therapy for boundaries. that's how
Hmm.
that's how bad I was with boundaries. So don't feel bad if you're bad with boundaries. I mean, it just again, it's the society we grow up in, right? It's more often than not we will grow up to be people pleasers because mm, we want those likes, we want people to like us, we want, you know, we want the good games, we want, we want that fame and stuff, right? Recognition. So the only thing I can say about that is just really practice it. And if it's really not yours, then don't take it on. Now, the example I gave with my brother, I gave that example because it's an example where we don't always feel like we can let it go. Even
Hmm.
though we literally can. We feel like we
Right.
can't because we have, family obligation, or maybe it's just a diehard friend. You die for this friend, right?
Right.
Um, it's but there has to come a time when you sit down and you look at it. And actually that's where the finger method comes in handy actually. When you're feeling overwhelmed, you got to really sit and think, okay, where can I say no? And it's uncomfortable because you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, which sounds weird, because there is no other way to do it. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't
Mm.
give, you can't give 50% if you're running on 20%. You know,
Mm.
so you've always got to make sure to take care of you first, so you can do these other things.
Wow, that's actually a phenomenal way to explain that concept because it is a difficult concept setting boundaries, for the individual that wants to go to outer space. And you have like 15 individuals that are constantly like, hey, you're really good at math, help me with my homework. And it's like, I can't, like, you're my cousin, how could you say no to me? I say, hey, go help your aunt, fill out this application for a job, or help your this individual, help that. And it's like, when am I gonna get time to focus on this, when, as you mentioned, you got to start looking at those uncomfortable situations. And if you never get comfortable being in an uncomfortable situation, you're going to consistently be fawning over everybody else's needs above your own.
Yep,
Mm.
you certainly will. And you hit the nail right on the head there. I mean, it's a difficult conversation though, because I mean, again, it's something that's ingrained with us, right? And it's not that we don't want to,
Hmm.
but we can get into that whole kind of rescuer situation too. And again, there's all these ugly labels that are thrown out. It's again, I
Right.
don't like labels. I think you probably guessed that by now. I hate labels. I just want to go on the record for everybody who's listening. Um, if you've been called a narcissist, okay, uh, there is a 0.1% chance that you are actually clinically considered a narcissist. Um, it's the word is thrown around so much now. It's just horrible, and it's used as a guilt trip. It's used to guilt us into doing stuff like, "Oh, you're selfish. Oh, you only care about yourself."
Mm.
Well, okay, if I'm in an airplane. All right. I'm a doctor. I'm in an airplane. This plane's going down. Okay. Then we're not stopping it. It's going down. Now, am I going to stand up and try to make sure everyone else has their seatbelts on? And then the oxygen masks come down. Am I going to be running up and down the aisles trying to get everyone else's mask on while I'm trying to hold my breath? I mean, no. I mean, it sounds selfish, but if I'm the only doctor on the plane, if I'm not breathing, then other people could die. It's exaggerated, right? But
Wow.
and it's the same thing. I got called out on this in an Uber, by the way. This is a real thing that happened with me and my daughter. So I was in the Uber, and I'd always explain my daughter this thing, and she's very smart. She's very smart, and I'm so proud of her. And anyway, she'll call it like it is, and so we get in the Uber, and I always did this. I would always help her put her seatbelt on first,
Hmm.
and then I would put mine on. And so she called me out on it. She's like, "Well, wait a second. What are you doing that for? You say that you should always put your own on first." And I said, "You're absolutely right. I should be doing that, but I don't because my instinct is to protect my daughter first
Right.
without concern for my own life. But that actually goes contrary to what is actually safer. What is actually safer is if I put mine on first and then help her put hers on. But when I go deeper into that, it's it's easier for us to help other people before we help ourselves.
Ah.
Because once we've helped ourselves, we're now comfortable and we
Mm.
don't want to be uncomfortable. Now that's not to say that we're all just big jerks. It's just to say that, this is the human condition. We're creatures of comfort. And these little nuances, once you understand that that's how they're working, it you can, take time to reprogram these habits.
Mm. That's amazing. And you mentioned earlier regarding that when you get caught up in things that sometimes you want to go to that instant gratification. In this world full of technology, how do you manage these distractions with so many things competing for our attention? We already mentioned individuals, but with technology competing with our attention, you kind of already dropped a little hint about having a secluded space. But for those that may not have that comfort, what would the ideal way to tackle those distractions be?
Right. So, if you don't have a spot, I literally used a closet for meditation for a while when I had to spend a bunch of time in a hotel, and the hotel had closets. I literally spent time in a closet.
Hmm.
Um, if you're not able to get away, though, like you're all in a confined space, I'm sure we all went through this in COVID to some extent or another, right? Sometimes it can be hard, but again, boundaries, having respect for one another. Make sure that anybody who's around you understands. Say, hey, just lay it out. Just say, hey, I love you to death, but between this hour and this hour, just chill it with the vacuum or keep the TV down because I'm trying to do something. And then you get like a good pair of noise canceling headphones, and then you can kind of focus. And again, that helps to bring you back is actually with the little finger trick. And a little trick below that actually is you start to narrow your focus, right?
Mm.
So one of the things that you do when you do that and you're grounded, then you start
Hmm.
narrowing your focus. You say, what can I see? So like right now I have a second monitor, I have a mouse, I have my microphone, I've got a cell phone. But then when I actually start to work, then I'll narrow my vision and I'll be focusing only on this screen right here. And then as I'm typing, if I find myself drifting away, if you're a tactile person, this will work. You'll feel when you're feeling the keys. So with each keystroke, actually feel it and like do it with intention. And once you've done that for like 2 minutes, you're good.
Yeah, it's much easier to then lock in once you're focusing, narrowing down, no distractions, in a safe mental space to uh, want to work essentially. And now we are down to the last two questions. You also touched base a little bit on this, but I did want to leave this for the end of the uh, episode here. How important is it to celebrate small wins? Because if we're going to be productive gamers, if we're going to avoid as much procrastination as possible, we're going to try to do, the bare minimum daily and hopefully do just a little bit more. How important is it to celebrate those wins? And in your case, how would you acknowledge your own progress? Because from the outside looking in, you really don't see the progress. And obviously, inside looking out, you definitely don't see the progress until somebody doesn't see you for a while. So, in that span of time, how do you end up acknowledging that you're making progress and, pat yourself on the back every now and again?
No, it's super important. Again, it's gonna sound a little bit silly. It's gonna feel weird. It's kind of like gratitude, right? So when you first start showing gratitude, many of us feel uncomfortable just because it's not something we do, right?
Hmm.
But then it becomes, eventually becomes second nature because you just do it, unconsciously. So there's not. It's the same with your celebrating your small wins, and it doesn't matter how small a win. Like, I mean, literally, and again, it's a fine line too because, um, and this is where you kind of have to use some self judgment, um, where you don't want to set yourself up with somebody who's going to belittle you or who's going to think that you're not doing enough. Even if you look up to this person, if they are minimizing or they are rationalizing different things, then they're probably not the best people to share these smaller wins with. You want
Mm.
people again that believe in you, that are going to be happy for you no matter what. And how do you celebrate those wins depends on you. So let's say that you want to say that I'm going to play video games for 5 minutes and I'm going to walk away. Now, I can tell you right now, that's going to feel pretty uncomfortable. Now, anybody who's not a gamer is going to be listening to this and be saying, 5 minutes, whatever. I do that all the time on Netflix when I got to go take a leak. Like, nah, it's not the same thing. Right? So it's not the same thing. So, how do you celebrate those wins? Maybe if you're trying to go on a diet, I wouldn't do this, but have a small win, positive reinforcement with treats, just like we do with dogs. I mean, it's
Mm.
very, very effective. No, I am not saying that human beings are dogs. I am saying that some of these concepts do apply, across the spectrum. So how you reward yourself is equally important. It has to be significant to you. So I knew somebody who celebrated small wins by saying that they would give themselves $5 if they didn't. It was really strange. They said if they didn't go over their budget for supplies for the week or whatever for the month, then they would take $5 and they would go and put that towards like a streaming account or something, right?
Oh.
And then at the once they did that for a couple of months, they had enough to buy a new game, right? So that then they did that, and then they go in, and then but then the challenge is okay, you got that small win, so now you got the shiny new thing. Do the same thing with the shiny new thing, and then you go and you build up a sort of a tolerance that way.
And it's a not just a tolerance; it's almost like a compounding effect as well. Like
Correct.
you're
Yes.
teaching yourself, and you're learning, and you're growing over time.
Yep. Very true. And just to again with the small wins, no win is too small, no dream is too small.
Mm.
I do want to, especially before we end the show, especially because of the audience and things like that. I mean, if you are aiming, you don't have to aim for the moon. Okay, not everybody's going to be an astronaut. Not everybody's going to be a rock star. Not everybody's going to be a movie star. If I pop that bubble, I'm sorry. I'm
Keep
not the
it
same.
real. Keep it
I'm not the same to
real.
go. But this message is not for you. This message is for the people that are working at Wendy's. Maybe they work their way up to shift manager or something. They're paying their bills. They got enough money in the bank that they're covering their bills and they can do what they want to do, and they're honestly happy with their life. That's okay. I mean, I fall back on SpongeBob a lot, a lot, just because that cartoon, man. I mean, it's got he is a fry cook, which is like this small little thing, right? But he is the best fry cook he can be, and that's
Mm.
really all you need to be happy. If you're happy, not none of the other stuff matters. So if somebody tells you that your dream isn't big enough, that's for you to decide, right? Now, I went off on a tangent there a little bit, but going back to celebrating small wins, no win is too small.
Hmm.
I mean, I literally when you're and the worse that you feel on a given day, the smaller the win, the better, because that small win is going to be enough to compound
Mm-hmm.
and bring yourself out of out of that sort of funk, right? So, I'll give you another example, a real life one. When I was staying in that hotel, it was rough. I was there for probably about 6 months, and what happened was I was having a really really crappy day. Like, I mean, well, actually, really crappy couple of months, and what happened was is I went out and I talked to this lady. I talked to the people at the front desk because it's what I did. Didn't have anything else to do. And she said that in our conversation I really helped her, and she gave me she gave me a root beer. Right? She ordered a DoorDash and she got an extra root beer, and she said she doesn't like root beer. It came with a meal. She gave it to me, so it literally cost her nothing.
Mm.
I swear to you, I was going back to I was going back to the hotel room. I was crying, man, because that was just that small little thing. First of all, that she said that that I helped her when I was, like, at my lowest point. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that is, I mean, it may not seem like a very big win, because you might say, like, you might minimize it, right? Saying,
Right.
"Oh, well, you didn't do anything." Or you might minimize it and say, "Oh, well, you helped her in this way. That's ridiculous. She coulda got that out of any self-help book, or,
Mm-hmm.
like, 5 minutes on a TED Talk or whatever," right? But, at that point, that was what I needed to sort of spiral back and get back into the game. So you celebrate the next
Mm-hmm.
win, and then the next one. But then you make the next win maybe a little bigger, make the next win a little bit bigger.
And that's actually pretty impressive because with just a small victory like that, as you mentioned, like the more you need it, you don't need like a monumental. You don't need to win the lottery. Just getting validation internally, and if internally it's not there, if somebody else, just I like the way you styled your hat, like or here you go, this is just a extra fries from the guy at McDonald's, like, hey, you were extra nice to me, the last three people were like horrible, cursed me out, you did it, so here, an extra couple of fries. That's actually so funny, because that definitely brings me to this last question, and it's almost like the pay it forward kind of a mindset that makes me want to think about this, because if you had a piece of advice to somebody that was listening and they see themselves in a lot of the different examples that you placed and a lot of different desires, goals, they hear the fight or flight, the fawn, and they're like, yeah, I'm in there, or they hear like, yeah, my goals aren't that big, and I don't want to be the president, I don't want to be a billionaire, I don't want to create. I just want to just have fun and be happy. What one piece of advice would you give to that individual that they just want to be happy? They don't want to go crazy. They just want to be happy, and they understand that what they're doing now is not leading them to happiness because their goals are not meeting with their actions. And so, what kind of advice would you want them to hear?
So really, the only bit of advice that I'd want them to hear is pretty simple, and it's just know yourself. If you don't know yourself, because that literally is like 90% of the battle. Because if you understand why you have the goals, if you understand why you're motivated, if you understand why you are, if you understand why you're procrastinating on them, again, if you're feeling overwhelmed, check your boundaries. Not my circus, not my monkey. Or
Right.
check your knowledge. Right. So is it a knowledge thing, or is it a boundary thing? You know, um, and just not to be too hard on themselves. Just understand that we all do the best that we can every day. And I had somebody ask me, well, how can you do that, Chris? How can you say I've done this boneheaded thing, or maybe no, I wasted 5 years playing video games. I could have gone to college. You
Mm-hmm.
did the best that you could with the information you had at the time.
Right.
And I said, okay, I'll give you a real example. You trust doctors? Well, marginally.
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay, you trust doctors. All right. So you're okay. with doctors having basically given hundreds of thousands of people cancer over the years.
Sheesh.
You're okay with that.
No,
And
that's tough.
I'm specifically talking about back in the 1950s. The information going around was that cigarettes were actually in some way kind of healthy for you, and all doctors smoked Camels.
Wow.
And it wasn't until about the 1970s that they turned around and they said, "Hmm, oops, yeah, we might be giving you cancer."
Oh
And then in
man.
the 90s, they switched that to, "Yeah, we're giving you cancer, bro. Sorry." So,
Wow.
if you can forgive doctors and understand that doctors were primarily coming from a place of supposed goodwill, right? Like
Hmm.
they weren't trying to kill us, right? But, if you can understand that they were operating the best that they could with the information they had at the time, then you have to understand that you also are doing the best that you can with the information that you have right now. Is that information maybe wrong, or is it maybe incomplete, or is it maybe, skewed a little? Yeah, maybe. But you're still doing the best you can with what you got.
Man, that's oh man, you finished it on a super strong note there. That's actually pretty enlightening. And that wraps up another episode for a gamer's guide to productivity. Guys, I know there was so much insightful tips in this podcast episode. I think it was like twice or three times as much insightful this time around, with way more anecdotal experiences that definitely hit, from the Everest one to the doctor one. Oof. Very, 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 very strong correlations there. Definitely, I love this episode, guys. If you liked it as well, make sure to drop a like, comment, and a subscribe, because I definitely found this very motivating. And if I found it motivating, I'm client number one. So I found this motivating. If you guys find this motivating, you share it with somebody that you think would also value this, whether you're telling them, hey, be a little bit more be a little bit more intentional with your time and figuring out the things you want to do, or you just want to let them know that they're doing the best that they can and they can accept that, because again, that internal validation is so important. The journey to mastering momentum and overcoming procrastination isn't always easy, but with the right mindset and strategies, you can achieve what you set your mind to. So once again, thank you, Chris, for joining us today, giving us so much valuable experience. Guys, if you want a session with Chris, there's a link in the bio. Check it out. He has a website you can check out a lot of the information. If you like the conversation that we had, you're definitely going to want a one-on-one with him, or at least get a little bit more clarification with him, because he will help you just by having those initial conversations. And if you remember in the first episode that we had, you got to bring a little notebook everywhere you go. Okay. But you got to have to check out the episode to know what I'm talking about. Other than that, guys, stay focused, stay purposeful, keep moving forward, keep leveling up, never give up. It's Nico Penguin from A Gamer's Guide to Productivity.